All right, it is that time once again, 5 o'clock on a Monday. Let's do this. Let's hit the books, part of the Hammer Betting Network, alongside the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish, producer extraordinaire Zach Phillips. I am merely Brad Powers. Before, at the end of the show, we give you another season win total best bet. Before we get to all your questions, comments, and concerns, before we get into a little Twitter spat that me and Knish had last week, before we get into all that, let me remind everybody
When
that
there was a deadly tornado in my neighborhood and you forgot to tell me? Or is that a different one?
there might be a few that we'll bring up. I forgot about that one. Before we get into all that, though, let me remind everybody, though, as always, Hit the Books is brought to you by BetStamp. The easiest way to improve as a sports bettor is to use multiple sports books and always get the best odds. We recommend using an odds comparison tool like BetStamp. Why? That's because BetStamp compares odds across every sports book for games, future players, and player props. You can save time and money by checking BetStamp before you bet. Download the app today. If you are looking to sign up for a new sportsbook account, please check out the offers available at betstamp.app/hitthebooks, or you can hit the link in the description. If you sign up through this page, it does help support the show. All right, Knish, what's been up, man? How's your week been outside of the tornadoes?
Yeah, well, yes. Thankfully, avoided tornadoes. Had a nice little, Mother's Day weekend. Little flower. I did a little project. Little Joey landscaping. Did a little yard cleanup, yard
There you
project.
go.
Took the mom flower shopping. So yeah, was all around good weekend. And saw our friends at Circa drop the hammer on and had a few opinion, nothing too drastic. I don't think. I'll interesting to get your perspective, but and Joe, I know you got one. Joey K's got a win total as well today.
So we got two.
It'll be a little double dip here.
And we have not talked before, so I would love for a show that we're on opposite. That would be awesome. It won't happen.
I almost guarantee it's not, but that'll be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing this, it's pretty apparent and clear cut. If you know what you're doing, you should be on the same side on 90% of these so far. So before we get into a pair of best bets, let's just get into it. Let's get into the chat. You know what? I do have one thing. I always like to start off with non-college football topics. Did you take place in this? I got sent by a couple of different people this golf thing, this mispricing on FanDuel about this Wells Fargo tournament. Did you get sent this?
I had. So honestly, I was late to I had heard, I got it from a little bit, but I did not. There was that. And also people now, the FanDuel, I have people asking me about the points and threes over SGPs that are making the rounds on Twitter. But give me I didn't get the full scope of the Wells Fargo. I just kind of heard it afterward.
Yeah, it was priced pretty horribly. It was over 263.5 was the bet that was made.
Okay.
So what's happened is there was two tournaments going on. And so, but obviously it was clear cut. Wells Fargo was the tournament going on over the weekend. There was a lesser known one. And when you placed the bet, it did not specify which tournament, but obviously it was a winner, but it was graded as a loser. So I am in a battle now trying to get that fixed.
Okay, run that. So the total 263.5. You're saying the total?
Yeah, score. The winner over 263.
Yeah.
And once they graded it, then they specified the tournament being the lesser known tournament. So it was not. I did not bet a lot because I knew there was going to be shenanigans. The way this was told to me, there's no free lunch anymore. There just isn't. So, but it's some shenanigans there at FanDuel.
Okay, that is wow. That's a shocking one to me. The one that I was. Everybody's posting these, 3-point and, the SGP mania. And is there an actual correlated plus EV edge that you're getting on some of these? Now, it's going to depend who you talk to. It's very situational. Yeah. My thoughts mostly being that I think a lot of it is priced in and you're not actually getting what you would call a plus EV bet in most cases. But since they've been hitting at a little bit higher clip, it's now all the rage all over everywhere. So a smarter man than me would have to do the math on all of them, but I have noticed that everybody has been posting these nonstop. And I did see this one as well that Gucci brings up where the Brunson prop was like 30. It was 25 for the series, and then it got changed to like the guy's ticket got changed to 30. So yeah, there's
oh my God,
it's getting cutthroat out there, I will say.
I guess so. We'll take advantage of FanDuel, not on this particular show, but you and I after the show, we'll get them back on some stuff tonight. So we speaking of that, before we get any questions on that, not gonna talk publicly G5 season win totals when they're not widely available. When one book in the world has them and only a few up, I'm just not wanting to ruin an entire market yet. We will, though, later in the summer, in a few weeks, once they become more readily available. I'm already getting shit for the P5 stuff, but I will say you can get if you want to get down a win total on a Power 5, there are plenty of books. Yeah, I mean, you can get down plenty on Power 5 stuff now. And speaking of that, we'll, again, have not one but two best bets at the end of the show. Grant in the chat. Brad, I love the spring game tweets you have been putting out on each team. Any thoughts on Iowa State? They lead the nation in returning production per Bill Connelly. I'm glad we'll get to two of this big picture Bill Connelly stuff. But first, Iowa State. I'm not a big, huge proponent of Matt Campbell when he has to play with expectations. There's obviously a lot more expectations on this year's team compared to last year's team where he exceeded expectations. I don't trust him enough to go over 7.5. I think the returning production is priced into that 7.5 number. So that was that's just, it's not a sell, but I think I'm holding pat at 7.5. There was a very early number, like 6.5 months ago that I did bet over, but nothing right now. Did you do anything with Iowa State yet?
No, similar thoughts. I love that, I love him playing on him as like, especially specifically like individually game wise as a big dog. He created that, that cloud zone defense, which kind of, there was like no better bet as Campbell getting like 21 points against, a high octane passing offense where they'd ugly the game up. But as far as, like, winning, trying to get over the hump to 8, 9, 10 games, win the Big 12, especially with the depths that it has now in the conference. That's not also, I'm not going to say he's been sniffed out. It's just a lot more teams run the concepts that he do now, that he kind of created on defense, or that he, developed and that. So between that and the fact that they're never going to have premium talent, they just don't recruit or get at a high level compared to some of the other schools. It would be, I know a lot of returning coming back, but if you kind of look into that, is it going to be, was that original production super high quality or super blue chip talent? No, it wasn't. So I don't think the ceiling changes very much for me for Iowa State.
Yeah, speaking of the ceiling, I mean, yeah, they're older, but they don't have enough talented guys that kick that extra gear their junior and senior years.
Agreed.
So typically speaking, we'll see. People will be quoting the returning production now until the start of the season. If anything, I might become a seller of Iowa State when it's all said and done, if that gets overpriced in the market. I do want to touch on Bill Connelly because he updated his returning production numbers today. And obviously some significant changes compared to what he had in February.
Yeah.
And I can say this, you want some big time actionable info, pay attention to the big differences. You find some opportunities to maybe, stuff that's baked in from the prior release in February, because I watched a bunch of spring games and Bill Connelly's February numbers were talked about in a lot of games and they weren't right. So be looking to possibly play on some of that stuff. I mean, I'll just give an example, one or two. His early rank returning production had like Kentucky 102. They're 14th today in his returning production.
Wow.
I mean, that's just, and we're talking stuff that's off 70, 80 spots, stuff that's off 20, 30% percentage points. Hawaii was another one, 89th, I think, in his first update. They're 7th. And I got to tell you, I mean, I know we live in a world where it's probably better to be first than best.
You're right.
Because when you're first, you get to control the narrative. let's take advantage of the narrative, especially if the narrative is wrong. So not anything against Bill, but stuff was wrong for 3 months, and I think it's going to get baked in on some teams. So I'll be spot playing and fading some of that. Did you see that got posted today?
I did, took a look at it. Just, a casual look, as you've said, that we've gone over on the show, guys, the Godfather, college football analytics, all that, but obviously the time he puts into it is significantly reduced to it was. And, a few years ago, the S&P Plus numbers used to have a lot of market influence, not just the returning production stuff, but on a week-to-week basis.
Yep.
Not the case so much anymore. And that's kind of due to just the overall quality of it. So, we'll see. I would say, and people ask us sometimes the macro questions, starting points, that this round of returning production, if you're doing your own stuff, probably better. But even then, and I know you do a lot of fine tooth comb stuff, especially with transfer portal and all that you didn't have to do a while ago. So yeah, but it's at least, I would say cleaned up, and worth a look for people out there.
Yeah, I will. I'm not going to disparage the numbers now because they're pretty much on point now. So, I mean, if you want to use them now, if you're just starting off your college football prep, that's a good starting point using his numbers that he tweeted today. So, again, not disparaging him. I will say he still controls the market for a little bit. And I'll give you one example. He hasn't posted anything as far as season previews yet. And that's a big reason why we haven't seen hardly any G5 stuff up yet. Typically at this point, for a decade plus, he would have all the G5 previews done.
He would start G5, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's why we've seen a little bit of delay there. Let's get back to the chat. Onion Man, thoughts on Minnesota over 4.5? Yeah, I think that there is a little bit of value there. I have made that bet. Yeah, it's a little juicy. Speaking of that, I mean, a lot of stuff's juiced considerably. But here's what I like about Minnesota. Speaking of returning production, I actually like this is a sneaky upgrade. They lose their quarterback, Kaliak Manis. Not a huge fan. They bring in an FCS transfer who's a really good passing quarterback. I think a big upgrade to the Minnesota offense this year. So over 4.5 for me.
I totally agree with you. And we're going to touch on it here with Jimmy's question in a bit in terms of Kaliak Manis. I could not agree anymore in terms of the upgrading the quarterback position. Now, are they, as I'm kind of, Joe K's going to rush to add some, before they move this number here at certain places. So I might add a little 4.5 myself. But okay, now we're in. Now we can talk. So overall, also, I'm not going to say they've got I really don't like what North Carolina has coming back. That's the opener. It's at home. Then you've got Rhode Island, decent FCS, in Nevada. Like, I would expect you've got Iowa at home. I'm also not a big fan of. This team has a legitimate shot to start out the gate 4-0, and I would say on the downside, be 3-1, and they kind of get, they don't have Ohio State, they don't have Oregon, they've got a lot of games, especially on the second half of the schedule, Maryland at home, Rutgers, that are kind of those toss-up games. So yeah, I think this team, I think they can definitely get to 5. I could see them being a bowl team as well. So yeah, I like that 4.5. That the Dukuch had. I just had to sneak a little bit in there that moved the number, but I agree. I think the number should be 5.5, as opposed to 4.5, especially if you're down on some of the teams that are on the beginning of their schedule, like Iowa, UNC, as I am. So.
And Circa opened them up at 5.5 over the weekend.
Yeah,
they had about 10 teams that they shaded, and I would say 8 or 9 of the 10 I agreed with how they shaded it. When the market was painted a certain number and they shaded it a half-win difference, for the most part, Circa did a pretty good job. We'll get to more of that throughout the show. So yeah, over 4.5. That's why we don't like to make strong statements. I mean, we could blow this whole win total market out. Just if we answer every question. Yep, bet it, love it. This. So we got a long off season yet. 3 months, guys. Isaac in the chat. All right, to the NFL we go. The Bears under 8.5 at plus money. Now, if you still like it. Also, DK has Oklahoma under 7.5. A much better price than anything else I've seen.
I think
Have you bet
both
the
made
Bears?
this NFL bet, unless he means the like Baylor Bears or but
No, he's thinking Chicago, right? The
okay,
Bears.
because I think we both made 8.5 under at plus money for the NFL Chicago Bears.
Yeah, so you like that under?
I did play some at plus money. I just think the division's too tough, and I'm not. Again, I like what they're some of the the talent and stuff they've added. I don't totally believe in the organization top to bottom, or think that Caleb Williams is going to have a CJ Stroud-ish type of year one. I don't think he's that fine-tuned of a player. So I like it at plus money.
Yeah, this is in the weeds, and this isn't necessarily a huge knock on Caleb, but Orlovsky's kind of pointing this out and talking about this, how Notre Dame attacked Caleb. He had arguably his worst game of his college career against Notre Dame last year, much to my I had USC in the game, but how Notre Dame attacked him. Al Golden's their DC. Al Golden was with the Bengals. He used a similar scheme as what the Bengals did for a couple years there, and how they defended Patrick Mahomes. I look for a lot of NFL teams to copy what Notre Dame did to him. So Orlovsky's got some a bunch. He's breaking down individual plays and what Notre Dame did. So that's kind of a good. If you look for that on Twitter, if you can find that clips, and I expect Caleb's going to have to adjust that. We'll see. But yeah, I'm more of a seller on the Bears. Mike is not believing on the second half of that question as far as Oklahoma under. I agree with Mike. I don't know if it's a bad bet, but I'm not betting under 7.5. I think 7.5 is the right number.
I agree. That's one that I like over at 7.5, under at 8.5. I think they're, I think Oklahoma kind of lines up as an 8-4 team there. But I would still lean, I prefer the over 7.5 too, depending on what price you're getting there on the juice. But I agree. That's one that I think, and not to, I mean, it is going to be tough for, the transition, but I think Jackson Arnold's the real deal. Like I think he's, and I know you had some tweet about Deion Burks, and I think you're going to have that massive year. But anytime you have an established guy like Gabriel, and I'm not saying they shoved him out the door, but I think it was like it's that to me says, as a program, it's this kid's time. And like we could pay Gabriel, maybe get him back, all that, and stuff, and have him one more year for go to. I think Jackson Arnold can really could be a household name here with that offense.
Only concern I have is that offensive line in the SEC. That would be my concern there. But I like, for the most part, what I saw in the spring game. Egg in the chat. Thoughts on Heisman market with expanded playoff? Feels like opposite of a national title market, as in far more guys can actually win now because they'll be seen as playing for contenders by the media. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. I'm not expecting to bet more. I bet a few so far. I haven't gone wild yet because I was waiting to watch all the spring games and trying to get a better feel. But yeah, I think that overall thought process sounds right to me. What say you?
Maybe a bit more open. I still don't think like if you're asking, does that include some G5 teams? I would say no. I don't know if it's going to change the parameters too much on terms of who the focus is still going to be on teams. But could you see a scenario where there's going to be teams taking more losses now, and a guy, maybe that race for the last playoff spot, if a guy comes, is having a crazy year, turns into what could put him over the hump for the Heisman, maybe. But I mean, we're kind of, when you're talking about voters and how they respond, and this is the first year, we're kind of theorizing there. Could I see it happen? Yeah. Am I gonna, am I gonna spray the board completely because I think it's gonna happen? No.
Yeah, and again, we're in a new year of this. I don't know. I'd like to see what happens for a year, and maybe I can come up with some better hypothesis. But yeah, it sounds fair. I'm not gonna go from betting 10 guys a year to 20, though. I can tell you that. Johnny Bravo in the chat. Any Joey Pucks action tonight?
Joey, this is So Joey Pucks is gonna this Ranger series is gonna put Joey Pucks in the Joey Poorhouse because I was on the Canes. I did bet the Canes again. They've outplayed the Rangers in every game of the series. They lost the first three. I just you're getting even a little bit of cheap juice. I mean, you're getting even some places a little bit better than pick on a team that listen, that's hockey. The better team doesn't always win the game. They obviously have a better goaltender, but the Canes have outplayed the Rangers in every single game. They'll outplay them again tonight. Maybe they win, maybe they lose, but I'll take pick on that as far as small bet on the Canes. It'd be probably a larger bet if I wasn't already going to lose a household on Canes series price. So yeah, just Canes for me tonight.
How is the NHL going for you? And NBA? Are you betting the NBA too?
The season went very particularly well. I don't do as much NBA, especially playoff time. But the NHL went well. So
Zach's on the Rangers.
Oh, is that a Edgework head to head? Zach's on the Rags tonight to close it out. So yeah, and just all skating around the ice in a in a sundress, shaving up just as the Rangers win is my nightmare. So yeah, hopefully the Canes can stay alive tonight.
Jimmy S. back to college football. Rutgers 6.5, even with the quarterback disaster. So much production coming back.
We've been dying to talk on this one because I missed it last week, and I was like, and a great lead in with Kaliak Manis. I don't know what the fuck they're thinking. I think he was like I thought the guy was the worst quarterback in the Big Ten last year, and they invested multiple years into Wimsat and money I know for sure, and NIL money, and then basically kicked him to the curb for Kaliak Manis. And it's a team that I think there's a lot of signals pointing up, except for quarterback, and I can't believe they did it. And it has me 100% off of the Rutgers 2024-2025 season because I think he absolutely sucks. So that's my I can't. I don't know what they were thinking. I think it's a downgrade. Wimsat, and I'm not a Wimsat guy, but
well, he could run around a little bit.
He could run exactly.
I think Kaliak Manis is a better thrower, but not saying much there. I would chalk it up as a missed opportunity for Rutgers. I think they had the ability to win 8-9 games this year. They're not going to have many seasons in the new Big Ten where they're going to get the opportunities like that. And why do I say that? Have you looked at the schedule? No Ohio State, no Michigan, no Penn State, no Oregon. They avoid the top 4 teams in the league. They're the only team that I believe that gets that opportunity. I do like a lot of the other parts. So this is a team. I think I tweeted this. He's built them into a mediocre Big Ten team. And I mean that as a positive, as a compliment. Right. I mean, because they were terrible. Circa opened at 6th. I think 7-5 is much more likely than 5-7. I'll put it that way.
I definitely, I wouldn't. This isn't me like making the case to run an under up there. I'm with you where like I thought they could have had one of the better seasons they've had in a long time with a real core. If you were going to go into the dip in the portal and get a quarterback, that would have been so far down the list of guys that I would have including FCS guys, like local that I would have rather had than him. I just
UNLV's got a couple FCS guys that are better
right.
Man.
I just
2. So I don't get it. I
remember like this Kaliak Manis over 84 passing yards was a sweat. That tells you all you need to know. I just think it puts a cap on who they can be because the schedule is obviously very favorable, but they're going to have to ugly it up in almost every game. And then you're talking about, a lot of variance in the result.
Yeah, speaking of that, I think his first pass in the spring game was almost a pick 6. Should have been. I dropped it. He settled in a little bit, but my goodness. RW Fan 23. Oh, wow. Look at this Joey All Sports. WNBA season-long stuff.
You know what? It's fun. I didn't do much on the season. I do think there's a little bit of, if we look at the player award stuff, if you want to fade A'ja Wilson and not with Caitlin Clark as everybody has done. I think there's I sprayed a couple names on the MVP ballot. I don't think there's much outside of that. I didn't do win totals either. So it was a couple of small MVP flyers and that was it. And if you want to, pray that Caitlin Clark gets hurt and, like you bet some rookie of the year, but that was it. I wish I had more for you there, but did not do a ton of preseason WNBA stuff.
Do you do anything individual game basis during the regular season? Because I know quite a few that used to bet that.
Yeah,
and had a hell of a lot of success.
I will. That's another one of those that we'll
disappeared.
We'll call it very NFL draft-ish. Can you still make money? Yes. Is it free money anymore? No. A lot more people got involved and just made it a lot harder. So still do some dub, but not. It used to be it used to be real good. And like many things, it just gets harder as time goes on.
Onion Man in the chat. Thoughts on Wisconsin over 6.5? Lose Allen, but feels like an upgraded quarterback with Tyler Van Dyke in Longo's second year. Yeah, I lean more. Speaking of Circa, they opened 7. I know some people bet some under 7 there, but I prefer over 6.5. Not one of my favorite bets. I made like 70 win total bets last I counted. One of them was Wisconsin over 6.5.
That'd be the way I'd lean as well. I will say I was a little last year, kind of shook my confidence in like
Agree.
Phil Longo in general, and just the transition was rough, rougher than I thought it would be. And I would say I'm also not the biggest. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I'm not the biggest fickle guy in the world. I think they could have a little bit of, like you said, natural upgrade just from switching. But gun to my head, would I play over? Yes. Did I bet over? No, I did not. So I think, a little bit of favorability in the schedule with they still got one of the old Big Ten West teams, but
Alabama coming in.
Yeah, Alabama coming in there. So it'll be interesting. They definitely have to, start off. They got a couple cupcakes here in Western Michigan and South Dakota, and then it gets pretty hot and heavy from there. So we'll see. But I don't know. I was thrown off last year at how rough the transition was. Hopefully better now for.
Yeah, a couple of things for me. A little bit in the weeds. Didn't get to see their spring game, unfortunately. They didn't televise it, so that kind of ticked me off a little bit as far as getting a good read on them. 2, I was surprised that Fickle went the Longo way as far as offense. I don't know. Wisconsin, in my opinion, didn't feel like it needed a major overhaul, just needed some tweaks. Okay, let's modernize our offense a little bit, not necessarily going to the air raid. Let's do a little bit better job recruiting, especially at the quarterback position. Maybe let's get a little bit of a playmaker like they had at Russell Wilson the one year.
Yep.
Let's start going for that instead of, let's in the cold and the snow and the wind, let's throw it 50 times. I didn't get that. Another thing, this is way in the weeds, worries me. A couple of his assistants have left and decided to work with Marcus Freeman.
Yeah. Well, not for me.
I worry about that.
Fired after getting a DUI, like after a week taking the job, but their D-line coach left also. Who was really good here. I also like Phil Longo's one of those, like, are we sure he still got it? Type of thing. After a few of the stops where, like, after he leaves North Carolina and they still, like the next year the offense really takes on. Then the first year at Wisconsin, like, don't know. Maybe I he's kind of living off a little bit of the past too much at this point.
Next one in the chat, SoCal Playa 41. What do you think of Florida now at 4.5? I think 4.5 is the right number. So do with that what you may. There's a lot of disparity as far as the numbers out there. If you want to lay some heavy juice, I did on the other one there. I don't think much of them. It's not like I'm way down on the talent. I think they're okay. It's the toughest schedule. I've been doing this now 15 years. It's the toughest schedule as far as power ratings that I've ever seen in 15 years. So, and it's a coach that if they suffer a couple losses early, which is possible, including week 1 against Miami, which is a huge game.
Yep.
I think it can get ugly, and they can have an interim by midseason. And
Yeah,
go look at their last 5 games, all 5 in the anybody's top 15.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go with it too. Was especially if it starts off bad, do they just fire him and the wheels fall off there? Because I agree, like team wise, I don't actually, and I don't know if I don't want to be a Billy Napier apologist here. I feel like it's just he's had such a bad. There's so many things that have gone wrong that have not particularly been like in his control. Like I even think last year bringing in Graham Mertz and like the team they were able to put on the field was actually like more competitive in a lot of aspects than I thought it would be. But you had the Jalen Rashada thing, which I think really hurt them in recruiting wise, that falling through. And then have they been able to recruit at the level they've wanted to and kind of where the talent was? And then now you go into this year with like the hardest schedule of all time. I just don't know if he's going to have the room to breathe to be able to get out of this. Because if he goes 4-8 this year, he's probably done.
Yeah, he's done at 4-8.
So I
don't even think 4-8 would be a terrible. Like he could have a top 30 team as far as a power rating and go 4-8. That's how tough the schedule is, especially if a bunch of them are close losses. So I don't know, just a really bad break for him. Multiple. I like that.
I would hire him at a G. Like I would hire Napier again at a G5. Pretty.
Oh yeah, I would too in a heartbeat.
I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he ran up against a stacked deck here.
I do like DJ Lagway, that true freshman quarterback.
Yeah,
Cam Newton vibes to that kid. So not that he's going to have a major impact this year. Mertz will be fine. They got some guys. So I'm anxious to see what that Miami line gets to on week 1. I might be more pro Florida than the market. I put it that way. Brendan in the chat. Thoughts on Pitt at 5.5? I would actually lean more under. I like that he went outside the box as far as his coordinator. But, man, I don't know if he's got the personnel to run that offense. He brought in Western Carolina's OC, Narduzzi I'm talking about. But that was a tough look as far as the spring game. I don't think they got the wide receivers. I don't think they got they just struggled with the tempo. They just couldn't handle it. And then I would say that their best defensive player and the best player on the field transferred after the game to Colorado. That Hayes kid on the defensive front. So that's not good. They lost their defensive line coach. Partridge was one of the better ones in the country. This is deep in the weeds, but that might make a difference.
Yeah.
I'm more on the under there.
I would, and you know what? We sometimes on the show talk when you make a drastic offensive transition, I think typically year 1, when you don't have that type of personnel, it can be a little different now in the portal era, but they didn't do a great big overhaul. I think as we just talked about with Wisconsin in year 1 and the opportunity cost that they paid switching it, and it was ugly. There's a chance it could look ugly. And I don't think they have the personnel on defense to make up for that anymore. So I don't know. You think is this kind of the end of the Nard dog?
Could be. Yeah, could be. If it goes as bad as last year, and I think it's possible, it could be it.
Yep.
Interesting. Won the ACC just a couple years ago. RW fan in the chat. Can a group of 5 player ever win the Heisman again? Literally have to be a slam dunk case, in my opinion. I'm trying to think who's the group of 5 player that won it. Detmer, BYU. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I know
1990 Detmer, but they were like a tweener at that point.
Yeah, you're right. I don't. The gap is just further expanding here between the haves and the have-nots, and if anything, I think you'll see. Not that we can open this. This is a Pandora's box college football conversation, but I think you're going to continue to see more changes of at some point. Maybe you have but G5 is its own subdivision or something like that. Where
I hope there's a split. I think it'd be awesome, to be honest with you.
I agree, and then we're back. Maybe we have our own market for G5 Heisman. They have their own award or something like that. That's our dub. That's the only way I see it, because you see what Boise State with like the not going to pay freshmen. You're not. And that's one of the better G5 programs. You know what I'm saying? Like these teams that aren't going to have payrolls or any of that. Like it's just, and look, the exodus of talent after every year, you find a couple of good recruits and then they go to they transfer up. So at some point things mechanically will have to change, but that's a long-winded answer of saying that no, the only chance I think will be if you see major changes to the structure of the sport.
Eat that in the chat. It's a bit juicy. Would you pay minus 150 on Michigan State under 5.5 wins? I would. That's a best bet still at that price.
Yep, I totally agree.
That's off a win. Keep in mind, a half a win's worth 70 cents. A full win, do the math. Off quite a bit. Onion Man in the chat, you guys get involved in NC State over 8.5 in addition to the ACC future? I did. Not one of my favorite bets, but did play a little NC State over there. I'm telling you, most improved. I will rubber stamp this. Remember my California last year? The NC State's my California this year. I mean, I'm telling you, that team is very live in the ACC. I just could not believe what I was watching that game. I mean, they looked like a legit offense with weapons. And then I just trust their defense with Hunter Gibson. So that's a good-looking team. I don't know. I'm not a big Dave Doran guy, but he does win. Go look at the consistency. He wins.
Yep. I agree with you. Yeah, I think we even talked last. I think both sprinkled some to win the 8. Now you got to shop around because it's come down at a few, but bet some ACC title there and some over as well. So as I agree with you, not 8.5. I don't think is like run to the window and bang it or anything. But I think they could be a 9-3, 10-2, and ACC contender if they win the right games.
Steve in the chat, I apologize with week 1 not being widely available. I'd rather wait on stuff like that because if I make a comment, especially knowing my Notre Dame background, we'll move a market, and I don't want to move anything yet. So there will be bets to be made in that game. Matt in the chat, thoughts on Mississippi State over 4.5 wins? I think 4.5 is right for the most part. I am a lot more optimistic after watching their spring game. Speaking of Longo losing his fastball, Jeff Lebby has not lost his fastball. I like the higher. Blake Shapen looked good, believe it or not. They got 4 or 5 wideouts that are going to be a problem for a lot of defenses. I mean, for a team making a drastic transition, they didn't look like in the spring game. I mean, they were wide open. So I'm a lot more bullish, probably on an individual game basis more on Mississippi State. Again, I played an off number. Caesars, Willie Hill had 4. I played over 4 there, but 4.5 is more priced in line. But I do think 5 is more likely than 4. I'll put it that way.
I agree with you. And I agree. You know what? And they've got some games, Arizona State and I know Toledo.
That's winnable.
Yeah. Arizona State, Toledo, UMass, Eastern Kentucky. I mean, they've got now. Granted, you're about they've got a lot of the cream of the crop in the SEC. But even games against Arkansas and Florida. So I agree. I think over 4 was a good bet. 4.5 is probably a pass for me. But if I gun to my head, I'd play the over.
6:30 Connor just joined. I'm about to rewind and start at the beginning. But if you guys haven't already talked about it, what'd you think about Alabama's spring game? We haven't talked to Alabama. We haven't, in fact, talked to Alabama much the last few weeks, really. I felt like I didn't get a good look at the spring game. It was a little uneven. At first, I was like, holy cow, they got a big-time problem on defense because the offense went through their defense like a hot knife through butter. Defense wasn't tackling. But then the entire second half of the scrimmage, the defense won. So I don't know yet. I was hoping to get a better look and a better feel. I hate to say it, but I don't have a great feel on Alabama. My initial gut was I wanted to be a seller on Alabama this year. When that portal was happening, when that news, I'm like, oh man, I don't know if they'll be able to recover. But I like some of the pieces that DeBoer's put in place. I am concerned that his original offensive coordinator, his original offensive line coach left for the Seahawks. That concerns me a little bit. Right now, the win total is 9.5. If you asked me if I had to make a bet, I'd probably lean more towards under than over.
This is a fascinating one for me because as much I love the coach himself, and I agree with you. I thought that when the exodus was first happening, I was like, oh my god, like this is going to be. they kind of stemmed the tide. They were able to bring in, a couple of pieces to help, kind of, I would say, pacify that talent drain. I do think they could, be. I just love it. The proof is in the pudding with a guy like DeBoer and his
Yeah, he wins
ATS
everywhere.
record, and against a number of these. With that said, they aren't going to have, they're definitely not going to have the depth of talent they've had in years past under Saban, where, now it's going to be an Alabama team where a couple injuries here and there, and you're bringing on guys that are, that in the last 5-10 years, it's been, another 5-star who comes in and, is going to be an NFL draft pick. Been pretty thinned out now. But I do think they'll be good on offense. With that said, 9.5, I think it's a pass for me either way.
Go look at their last 3 years since the 2020 national title team. They've been fortunate to win as many games. They've been on the right side of luck and more. I mean, look no further than the Auburn game last year. I wonder what the win total would be had that ball bounced not their way a few times the last couple of years. We'll get more into that. Again, I would like to gotten a better look at the quarterbacks. I'm not a big Milroe guy in this. If you got to rely on his arm more, I don't know if that's going to be a great look. Jake in the chat, are you fading Miami and Cristobal this year? I can tell you a lot of people are pro Miami.
Yeah.
I think Bud Elliott's pro Miami, a few others in the market. I'm seeing buyback. Originally, though, and I'm on the under 9.5 train. I'll just put it that way.
I think, the question we phrased it on the show either last week or a few weeks ago was like, have they accumulated so much talent to overcome the coaching deficiency? Where, and you have to hope, sometimes we've talked about James Franklin. I would kind of make this comparison too of like, did they get the right coordinators finally in place, to overcome some of the head coach buffoonery? We'll call it with the crystal ball decision making. I mean, they're stacked, especially compared to most of the teams in the ACC. They should just be able to kind of last year. I mean, their offensive line in the games they were winning. When I was like, when I jumped on the Miami train, I was like, they're just destroying teams up front with their offensive line,
Yeah.
deep, and then you know what? It kind of fell a little apart there just due to some malpractice on. But yeah, they have all the talent in the world. Do you want to believe in this coaching staff? But I did not. I did not play the under, so I would say, and they've got. I mean, they're no Clemson, Florida State at home. It's kind of
it's there.
It's set up for them. I'll say that.
They have won 10 games one time in 20 years.
That's true. That is true. The
brand.
I haven't put my money behind it, so no. I will say that.
No, I'll say generally speaking, I think the ACC is better than people think, better than they're getting credit for. I like NC State. I think Virginia Tech's a quality team. I'm anxious to see what SMU does. I like what SMU has pieces wise. Syracuse under year one coach, I think is going to be better than people think. I know there's a lot more talent on that roster. I think overall, I think Florida State's better than people. I think they're throwing them in the trash because of what happened in the bowl game. I think they're better than people are giving them credit for. I don't think a lot of those games are slam dunks for Miami, like it looks on paper. Just a few more, and then we'll get you guys out of here with a couple best bets. Onion Man in the chat. Am I sicko for wanting to take Stanford over 3.5? I would lean that way. I haven't made that bet. Another, in the old days, the penny lean, the circa lean, they opened Stanford 4. I thought about betting under just because the half went off of a widely available number, but I just to put in perspective, I didn't. I was like, nah. Somebody did though. I see it moved down to 3.5, but I like Taylor, their coach. I think he's pretty sharp.
Me too.
Returning productions there. That was a team that moved significantly from his early update. Stanford was a team that Connelly didn't have priced accordingly. So I thought there'd be a little bit more value on them, but I haven't got to the window yet.
I'd lean that way. I like Troy Taylor. I can't give you a ton of this roster. It's very, very hard to accumulate recruit talent now.
Not a lot of slam dunk wins either.
No, not very many at all. Maybe they've got. I think they closed with San Jose State. They got Cal Poly. So you
There's
hope
two.
2 there, and then you're looking for 2 more. And
Yeah.
it might be a little.
I think there'll be an underdog in all 10 of those other games.
That's what I was gonna say. You're gonna need a couple of those 2. But gun to my head, I would play the over. I have not actually took it on though.
One more, and then we'll get to best bets. RBB 14 in the chat. Thoughts on Indiana? I like the Cignetti hire. I do too. A lot of the transfer additions. I do too. Worry about depth on both lines in the secondary. I do too. I couldn't have said it probably better. Originally, I was thinking under, and I did make that bet. I went to their spring game. I watched it. They're a little bit better than I thought they would. I still, gun to head, I'm still going under. I think it's asking a lot to get them to bowl eligibility, but I'm not wild about that bet as I originally was when I made it back in February.
I great breakdown, I would say, because I agree with that in terms of on a lot of layers there, that the pieces that he brought in and kind of bringing over a lot of the JMU guys and the culture, and he was able to keep Donovan Cawley. I think the wide receiver, Michigan really wanted him, and there were some teams.
Good ball player.
Yeah. There were some real teams going after him. I don't know. He must have had a little cash infusion there too, along with the hire, because they were able to keep some of their pieces.
Yeah,
I agree. Like bowl eligibility is a big ask, but they've kind of got some very favorable, non-con, and then if you can get into conference, I mean, they've got a lot of the lower rung of the Big Ten to go up against. So, I'm
kind of changed my tune a little bit. I can see it. I still worry about depth. And I just, another question. I mean, these James Madison kids are good. He brought like 11 starters from this James Madison team. How do they do on a week in and week out basis in the Big Ten? Not sure. I do like Fisher, their linebacker. I think he'll have to be 100 tackle type guy. I just know what it looks like. And he looked the part in the spring game. You're right about the money. Not only McCauley, their left tackle's really good. I know this is in the weeds. That Carter Smith kid's really good. I watched him during the spring game. I mean, they were running to the left too. That's why I started focusing on that. He's good. They're also spending money in recruiting. They're getting a five-star quarterback to visit. They must have given up on the basketball team. Might as well try to win some big football games here. And I wonder, look, Tom Allen didn't end well, but maybe that gave some new life a couple years ago when the football team had a couple good seasons.
Yeah.
Maybe gave some life to that fan base. So kudos for them. I'll be honest with you. I was on campus. Indiana is not a bad place. Just being honest. That exceeded my expectations of the trip that I just made. Win total bet, man. We'll start it off with you. What do you got?
All right.
Here.
We're going to get now. I had to do a little bit of movement here to get this price in range for the people. So we'll pull up FanDuel, if our friends over at FanDuel here, and the ACC, because I think this price was different. And Circa opened actually a little better price that Joey K bet them. So we're going the old Dabo fade, Clemson under 9.5, minus 134 there. At FanDuel there, and I don't think minus 134 will last. It's a lot more juiced elsewhere. I would say okay to minus 140. Don't go too crazy. Some places are 150, 160 or higher, but I like that at minus 134. I bet also at some Circa, some minus 125, and I'm gonna come in hot here. This is gonna win by October 5th, 2024. I think they're going to lose to Georgia. I think they're going to lose to NC State, and I think they're going to lose at Florida State, and they're going to be sitting 2-3. And I think this ticket is going to be a winner early. I'm not a believer. I think it's over. I'm not over from like going to be all like the guy won't change his tune. He didn't bring in any additional talent. I don't like Klubnik. I don't think he's a real guy. And they haven't just bolstered the roster as other teams have, and as the recruiting's kind of there you go. I knew that one wouldn't last, but I don't think Clemson is in this tier anymore. Like I don't think they're in the elite tier. Like give me, like the Miami and the Florida State and I think you've got to. I'm not going to call it a guaranteed lot, but you're going to lose week 1 to Georgia. and I think you're going to get bad.
Yeah, I agree.
And then there's some game like at Virginia Tech, South Carolina.
That game is going to be tough.
Yeah.
That is not a slam dunk. That's more a coin flip than win.
Louisville on the schedule too. So to me, I think this is an 8-4 type team that maybe I could see even if things go badly at 7-5. That doesn't have the depth they used to either when things were different, and they haven't added to it with any of the portals. So for me, I just think this is a program continually on the decline here. That's being priced a little too rich here. So I'm under 9.5 here. I think a ceiling wise, I think they're a 9-3 team.
You know what? I'm going to do something that it's going to piss some people off, but that's good enough for me that I'm not going to give an additional best bet. We'll hold mine.
Oh, saving them. Yeah,
I'm going to save it. So.
Save it. Yeah, we got plenty of shows. Save it.
Yeah, we got plenty of shows. I don't want to give out. That was good. I was worried. I was like, maybe I won't rubber stamp it, but yeah, that's rubber stamped. Love it. Clemson under 9.5. I don't want to give out too much. I know tailgate tent is going to be up my ass. Really.
I know he's texting me. What are you and Powers giving out today? You're driving me nuts.
Yeah.
I said, you can bet the circle limits are $5K. What do you want from us here?
I know, like 8-9 books are up. I mean, and these have been out since February. Some of the at FanDuel. So no, I love it. I did not make that bet yet, but I'm certainly with you. I was leaning more under than over. I guess I was getting greedy. I was hoping somebody was going to post a 10, but not going to happen. And probably more likely to see 8.5 now.
Was actually waiting on to see what Circa would post. I was hoping they would do it. It didn't do a 10. But the minus 125 was as cheap as it got. And then a few places kind of scaled back the juice to be able to then give it out. So I get text from people that Brad's no, hey folks, that's what you call a tease, baby. That is a tease.
All right, you know what? I'll give it out. Fuck it. Go to the ACC.
Oh, another
ACC. No, I don't want to be that guy. Might not have one next week now. So I'm just saying. Don't want to ruin this entire market, but we'll go to the ACC. We'll go to DraftKings. That's the best price. This is widely available as far as the number. We talked a lot of the Circa lean. I think there was a good one in this particular team for this weekend. But DraftKings has the best price. Again, staying in the ACC. Load up your books. This won't be a cancel. Even though I originally said cancel, the Raz style. We're going Duke. We're going under 6.5 wins. Under 6.5 wins, minus 130. Up to minus 150 is good. I have bet this multiple times. Let me tell you what I saw or did not see in the spring game. I didn't see an offensive line. They had 5 guys all spring. 5 scholarship offensive linemen all spring. Couldn't do a lot of work. They got a first-year coach in Manny Diaz. Now it's minus 150. Unbelievable. That moved quick. I just don't think you can build a team without a quality offensive line, especially if you got to build that offensive line depth and starter-wise over the course of a summer. Don't see it. Also didn't see it from the quarterbacks. There's a quarterback battle. Loftus and Malik Murphy from Texas. Obviously, Murphy's got more upside. Loftus doesn't have that wow factor for me to get them to 7-8 wins. I think, again, the ACC is tougher than expected this year. I think there's a lot of teams that are not slam dunk wins. I don't see it. A quarterback and offensive line, new system. They're going to run some tempo. I just don't see it with Manny this year. I'm going under 6.5 wins. I think 5 is more likely than 7. I'll put it that way.
I like it. Yep. No, I'm with you there. I agree. Not a Manny Diaz guy, to put it lightly. And it's a team that they really, God, for a lot of years, his name's escaping me, but even under Elko and the coach before, they were able to really, take a low amount of talent and make it competitive. And as you've said, the new look ACC in some places is gonna, now again, they've got at least they got
a chance at a good start, but I'm not counting Northwestern as a easy win. So I mean they're gonna be 3-1.
Yeah.
Then after that, where is the slam? There's not a single slam dunk win after the first 4 games.
No, that
Not
last
one.
6-7 weeks is you could see 0-6, 0-7 pretty easily.
Yeah. And there are, and for a team that the major reason depth issues, when you're that back half, the schedule is much tougher than the first half. I think there'll be some false sense of security there. I just don't see. I cannot even in the most optimistic manner get the 7 wins. So under 6.5 for me. I'll shop around. And circa 6. They opened at 6 and nobody bet it. They didn't move it to 6.5. So that should tell you something if you don't believe me. So pair of best bets in the ACC.
No, I agree with your take there that it is really hard to see 7 wins. Like I just going through it now where it's like even if you're giving them some games that they'll be an underdog and a slight dog, it really hard to get.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech's better. Florida State, no. I think SMU's better. At Miami, at NC State, those are losses, man.
Right.
Virginia Tech's better. I like Wake Forest this year. I think Wake Forest is a team that's flying a little bit under the radar. So, and that's on the road. Clausen's a better coach than Diaz. Under for Clemson, under 9.5 from Knish, under 6.5 for Duke. That's 4 win totals already, folks. All unders. That's what pros do. We bet unders. We think negative. We think worst case scenarios. Unders. And there's a lot more unders coming your way if you do tune in this show. That is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish. I'm merely Brad Powers. For producer extraordinaire, Zach Phillips. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Make sure you're subscribing. We'll talk to you next week, 5 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel.